All right, let's move into the second game of the weekend here. And this one, I think, is just going to be just as good. I know you got rocking the hat of Montana State. Well, they're taking on South Dakota State, who has been the heavy favorites all season long into this playoffs. They were the number one seed for a reason. 12-1 Montana State versus 11-1 South Dakota State. The Jackrabbits are a 5.5-point favorite. This game's going to be on Saturday, 4 o'clock Eastern Time, ESPN2, ESPN Plus, and NCAA.com. I think this game is going to be, both these games I think are going to be wild. I think they're going to be really good games to watch. I don't think you need to miss a single second of either of these games. What was surprising to me was the absolute beating that Montana State did against William & Mary, because the week before, William & Mary put an absolute hurt on their opponent, and which was, to me, just, insane. They put a hurt on Gardner Webb, and then they get completely blown out by Montana State. Ever since College Game Day came to Montana State against the Montana game, that was a big rivalry at the end of the season. I feel like Montana State has turned on to a whole new gear. They have been just completely on it. And this, to me, seems like we probably should have got this game next week in the championship game, because we might be getting a preview of the possibility of the two best teams remaining this week in this game right here. I think I think the winner of this game has a very strong chance of winning the whole thing come January 8th.
Well, I agree, and I do think, and it happens at all levels of college football, but especially at the FCS level, there is a reverence for the defending champion. So if they are in the mix for a seed, they're going to get the nod. And if it's close, and the committee is sort of like, well, I don't know, is it Montana State? Is it North Dakota State? North Dakota State's going to get that higher seed. But you're right. I mean, basically, these are the two best teams left in the FCS playoffs by far, bar none. South Dakota State, this is sort of like a revenge game for South Dakota State too, because back in 2021, these two teams played in Bozeman. And Montana State won by, I believe it was by 14 points, by 2 touchdowns, I'm pretty sure. But again, Montana State was the higher seed back then too. South Dakota State has a top 5 FCS defense. That's how they beat North Dakota State. That's how they beat everybody, in the Valley. They rely very heavily on the run game, especially, they've got a special back in Isaiah Davis. So South Dakota State's not going to just roll over or be intimidated, even when I start gushing about the Bobcats here in just a minute or so. They only allow, 70.6 yards a game on the ground.
Yeah.
In the FCS, that's unheard of. It's unheard of in the FBS, but in the FCS, there are a lot of teams, and they don't all run the triple option, or a variation of the wishbone or anything. They just run the ball well, at the FCS level. So San Diego State is going to have an answer potentially from Montana State.
It's going to be a good one. South Dakota State had a little bit of a scare last week against Holy Cross. If you would have caught that game at the beginning of it, or really into the first half, you would have saw this game was tied. Actually, going into the fourth quarter, this game was tied at 21. Then, South Dakota State turned it on at the end of the game in the fourth quarter, scored 21 unanswered to win at 42-21. But this game was completely different before that last 15 minutes of the game. If they want a chance to continue and be the favorite and move into the championship game and beat Montana State, they can't just be a fourth quarter team like they were last week. They have to turn it on and play very hard to beat this one. So I'm guessing that you're taking Montana State to get the upset on this one.
Well, see, in my mind, it's not an upset. They are the best team in the FCS right now. And that phrase right now is very important in any playoff. It doesn't matter whether it's the Little League playoffs or Pop Warner playoffs or high school playoffs. If you're the best team at that moment, going through that playoff bracket, that's what matters. It doesn't matter what happened in the regular season. That's already in the history books. What matters is what they're doing now. And Montana State, by far, you talked about College Game Day. Yeah. It was a crescendo. It kept growing and growing to that game. They embarrassed their cross state. It was a blowout. They embarrassed Montana, and Montana is a proud program. They're well coached. I know you were really high on Montana all year. I mean, as was I. Montana, they had some tough losses, but they embarrassed them on national television. They run for 334 yards a game, and they don't do any tricks. It's not the triple option or whatever it would be, and it's really unique with Montana State. They have a dual quarterback system. And when you see that, especially at the college level, generally one quarterback is the running quarterback and one quarterback is the throwing quarterback. Touchdown Tommy Mellott and Sean Chambers, they do both equally well. I mean, it's not like, Sean Chambers can't gain yards on the ground. He has a little bit of, I think, of a more accurate throwing arm than Tommy Mellott. And Tommy Mellott, if he has to make a big pass, he's proven all through the season that he can do that.
Yep.
But the big difference from Montana State is Isaiah Afonso, who basically has been out since before that 2021 matchup against South Dakota State. He had serious knee injury. He didn't even play his first game of the year until the second round of the playoffs, or Montana State's first game. So he's only 2 games in. He ran for 162 yards, 2 touchdowns. Both touchdowns were explosive, just blowing off tackle and then just running. Even with that serious knee injury and the big, cumbersome brace, he just blew past people. He is that final piece. We talk about that in baseball, for example, at the trading deadline. You're looking for that last piece, that extra bullpen arm or that extra bench bat. Afonso is a star, and because of injury, it's just taking him this long to get back. So as much as I've enjoyed the Jackrabbits all year, okay, I think that their season is they're going to be chasing their season down the jackrabbit hole, if you pardon the pun. Nice. Because I have a lot of time on my hand, Christian, so I can come up with this stuff. But really, I mean, Montana State, it's not just because I have the hat. And no, they didn't send it to me, South Dakota State fans. I actually bought it, okay? Because that's how impressed I was with Montana State even before the college game day. Mm-hmm. So this is a team of destiny. It's just one of those teams. If you want to call them a wild card, they were the number 4 seed. Personally, I think they could have been 3. And quite honestly, you talk about Holy Cross. Holy Cross really should have been the 4 seed. But again, that's right. It's in the past. It's in the past. Montana State is going to just wear down South Dakota State, and they're going to beat South Dakota State at their own game. Both defensively and with the run game, they're going to beat South Dakota State at their own game, and that's going to match up a pretty interesting matchup. The big Goliath, the dominant force in FCS for the last 12 years, North Dakota State, and a Montana State that's showing and proving some of the skeptics. And there were skeptics earlier in the year. Wait, why are you
sure?
Why are you doing 2 quarterbacks? Can't you decide? Isn't one good enough or not? Can you really keep running the ball this way? They had not even including Afonso. They had 4 guys run for at least 400 yards on the roster. So there's running backs that you're going to see come in the game that already have had big games or whatever. So this is Montana State's time. This is Montana State's game, and I think you're going to see them in the FCS Championship.
Well, we will have our answer to who makes it to the FCS Championship on January 8th by Saturday night. It will be Incarnate Word, will it be North Dakota State, will be Montana State, or South Dakota State. It's really 2 of those teams will punch their ticket. Let us know your thoughts in the comment description below. Hit like and subscribe while you're there, and thanks for listening to SlasherU.